Hello and welcome to my channel. Hey, this is Juanita. Today I'm in my kitchen and I've got all the plants that I own except for one, which is a larger plant. And that one I pretty much water separately in a different form. But today is all about watering my plants and how I care for them and to get them to bloom more than once a year. And that primarily is my orchids, lipstick plant, and my Christmas cactuses. When you get a plant and you stick your finger in, I would say about 1 knuckle deep. If there's any moisture in it, it still doesn't need to be watered. It can still continue to dry out. This is pretty dry, and I let all of my plants dry to almost to the bone. Then what I do is I take my plants one by one and I put it underneath running faucet. Now, the trick to getting my plants to bloom is very simple. I don't use fertilizer. I don't use any special kind of dirt. I just simply run my water until it is about to a point where it's getting hot, but not quite. With each plant, I water with warm water all the way up, and then I let it fully drain. I do this about 2 times for each plant. Once it is almost completely drained, I will pick up the plant and I will let it drain fairly well, and then I will place it into its container right here. As for my orchids, what I do, again, the water is warm. And in fact, I will bring it just where it is just getting hot. And I will saturate my orchids. Now I squeeze that so that it really soaks in all the water. I will do this for a good period until I find that all the water in here is pretty saturated. This is what I do with my orchids. This plant is a red orchid cactus. And as you can see, this cactus really could have used a lot more watering. When you see it wrinkled like this, it means that it is water deprived. So I will water to the top, and then I will let it sit in water. This is in standing water right now. It's almost not quite to the rim, but it is way up there. Now I will leave that. I think I'm filling the water. And I will leave that sit, and I do not drain the water out of it because this one actually could use quite a bit of water, and that is the reason why it's kind of leggy as far as this is being really leggy, because I really do neglect this one. And this spring I will transplant it, and I will show you how I transplant my plants. This is an Aloe Vera plant. Now it already has an attached bowl on it. However, it's just a bowl within a bowl. So I will remove that, and again, the water is going to be at temperature where you can stand it on your wrist. If you overwater your succulents, it's very easy to tell because they will start rotting. And this one here is nice and firm to the touch. It's not soggy, and that tells me it's got plenty of water. So I let this one completely drain out and then place it back into its bowl. Now with all my orchids, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I have a bed of rock underneath them. Now, little gravel, I put it in the base of all my orchids because I guess you could say it kind of humidifies my plants. And so with that said, when I water my orchids, I don't quite let them drain. I let them sit with just a little bit of water in them, because that water, once it warms up, it'll create a steam of sorts. Actually, that is what makes my orchids bloom. Now, the rule of thumb is, anyway, that when an orchid has bloomed, and it's completely done blooming, that you clip the stem. I don't do that. And sometimes, like right here, and I don't know if you can see this, but right here, this little area right here, it appears that it wants to grow a new stem. And so mine tend to grow a whole new bud from the existing wood. So, and this one right here is growing another stalk, and it will eventually bloom. Once that grows out a little bit more, then I could probably top it a little bit. You see from this, it is pretty dry. So I will saturate that, and I will squeeze that kind of like a sponge until it is completely saturated. And then I don't let it drain completely. Again, I have a bed of rocks, so that little bit of water that have some steam, and that'll also help my orchid. My Christmas cactus, pull these out because that's dead. However, you can see that there's still some buds of flowers trying to bloom. Right there, as well as, let's see, that one right there. So this will continue to bloom. And again, what I do with this one, I give it 2 good waterings, and I fill it up to the rim and let it drain. With my Christmas cactuses, I do not let them sit in water at all, because it will rot very quickly. So I basically will give it 2 good solid waterings, and that is it, and I put them back. While that's draining, I will saturate this one. And again, I just let it soak and that. So if you're going to water and then let this drain into the pot, make sure that the water level is below the rocks. Do not leave it above the rocks. This orchid here, as you saw, I just watered it. This one here has had a bloom here, and this bloom over here on this old wood here that this new start is coming from. That finished blooming in, I would say, November. And already I have another bloom. This continually bloomed for me. I really believe that the reason for it is because I water them in the way that I do. Now, a healthy leaf on an orchid is going to be shiny. When your orchids bloom, if you have any orchids, pay attention to this, because I have noticed with every orchid that when it comes in bloom, this takes so much energy from the plant. So you may end up losing and getting a yellow leaf at the very bottom of it. And if you do that, just clip it off with scissors so that it doesn't take away from the energy of the flower. That one there actually sits in the south window in my bathroom. Now this Christmas cactus continues to bloom for me as well. And you can tell it's really healthy because all its limbs are really nice and firm. That's how you can tell a really healthy cactus. And this one here definitely is dry to the bone. I don't know if you can hear that. That is dry. So again, I give it hot water as much as your wrist can handle. Now with these ones, since they are in a built-in base for it, what I do is I let the water completely drain, and then I let it completely drain out of water. Especially because this one is really nice and firm. Now this one could stand a little bit more water because it's not quite as thick and firm as this one is. So this one here could stand in a tiny bit of water. But like I said, in my experience, Christmas cactuses, they tend to rot if you sit in water. They don't like their feet wet at all. Now this is a really good example of what I was talking about. How, oh, well, that fell. It fell on its own. This is a good example. This is one of the leaves from here. And as you can see, there's another one. For some reason, orchid, when they bloom, they take a lot of energy from the leaves. So you will see, like this one's a little wilty. It's possible that it may even yellow and die off like this. It's okay if they do, just clip it, it's not hurting it. They will grow a whole new leaf. So there's nothing to worry about that. And again, I'm squeezing. Because some of them are planted with bark, and then some of them are planted with peat moss, and some of them have a combination. Now, because I don't have any rocks in this one, I'm not going to let it sit in water. So there you have it. I was able to water all my plants. I do have one more. I will show you how I do that one. For the most part, I hope you enjoyed this video. It really is that simple. You can give them orchid plant food. Used to give my orchids some of it. And if you do use this, this is a good brand. Now, I quit using it. I haven't used it in, I don't even know how many years I have had this, and I really haven't used it because it really never proved to have my orchids bloom. It always seems to me that my orchids bloom because of what I do as far as letting them get bone dry and then giving them one good watering. That has worked for me, so I do what I do and I leave the rest alone. Now, supposedly this works. I've never seen it work. You can also do all-purpose plant food for your plant. Now, what I would suggest, if you do choose to use either one of these, what I would suggest is get a gallon milk jug and then follow the instructions and then fill it with really warm water. Then saturate your plant one time. First with water, plain water, just like I did. And then on the second watering, water it with the Miracle Grow or the orchid plant food. And that probably will work really well. I've never put it to play because, like I said, I just water them with warm water and they seem to be thriving. So I just do what I do. But yeah, my orchids, like I said, continuously bloom. No more than they lose their bloom, they're shooting out new stalks. My Christmas cactuses, they bloom for me at least 4 times a year. And I think the trick to it is just the warm water. I learned this from a Japanese woman at a restaurant. And they're always in bloom. Every time I go there, they're always in bloom. So I asked the ladies, how do you get them to bloom? And she said, give them warm water and leave them alone. Of course, in the restaurant, they have more filtered light, so they have them on the tables. But since I don't get a lot of filtered light throughout my home, I put them next to a window where they get that filtered light. If you don't have a lot of filtered light in your home, then try to put them in front of a south window or even a north window if you have a lot of foliage outside that's going to make it nice and bright but not direct light. Then you're good to go. One more tip before I leave. This is something that I learned many, many years ago. And you could take this information and play around with it and see how true it rings for you. Every time I have moved a plant in the daylight, it has wilted and it goes into shock. So I never move my plants during the day. Now I did for this, but then my home gets very low light. When plants are a creature of habit, they do not like to be moved. They don't want to be disturbed. And the only time that you can do that I find that they would not wilt on me would be if I moved them at night. I'm going to guess that they're sleeping, and that is the reason why. But don't move your plants during the day. If you're going to move them around to water them, do it at night. Okay, so that's my only tip outside of watering that I am going to share. Mwah! Love you. I'll see you guys in my next video. This plant here, I have probably about that much water. And again, it is warm water. Now this is a succulent, so it's pretty hardy. I got it at an antique store for, I think, $20. Okay, so I gave it about that much water. I didn't use all of it. This one here is just too big of a pot for me to carry over, so yeah, I would say probably about a quart of water, warm water, in here.